Hello, everyone, and welcome back. Today, we're taking on a truly fascinating challenge. We're going to decode a remarkably dense, mind-bending philosophical treatise known as the Mind Equals Reality Principle, Infocognitive Reflexivity. Now, hey, don't let those big words scare you away. If you've ever found yourself pondering the fundamental nature of existence, consciousness, and how they actually connect, you are in for an incredible ride. I'm absolutely thrilled to unpack this source material with you today and turn these heavy, abstract concepts into a clear, compelling journey. Let's get right into it. I want you to start by just taking a look around you right now. Look at the walls, the objects in your room, the device you're watching this on. Now, think about your internal thoughts, observing those physical things. We instinctively feel like our minds exist in a completely different realm, right? Like a private, subjective bubble that's totally separate from the external, objective, physical universe we're looking at. But what if that separation is entirely an illusion? Are your mind and reality truly separate? Well, the source material we're exploring today argues forcefully that they are absolutely not. Okay, here's our roadmap for unpacking this massive paradigm shift. 1. The mind equals reality principle. 2. The illusion of separation. 3. The map is the terrain. 4. The substance of infocognition. And 5. Reality describing itself. So, diving straight into Section 1, Mind Equals Reality Principle. The text introduces a highly technical term right out of the gate: syntactic comprehensivity reflexivity. But, we can cut through all that jargon by simply calling it the M equals R, or Mind Equals Reality Principle. At its core, this asserts that mind and reality are ultimately inseparable. Why? Because they share the exact same common rules of structure and processing. They're bound by a uniform syntax. Think of it like they're playing by the exact same rules of the game. To even interact with one another in the first place, they have to share this foundational language. Which brings us to Section 2. The illusion of separation. The source material uses a brilliant logical concept to illustrate a major problem with separating mind and matter. Think of step 1 as the two things we're comparing, mind and reality. Step 2 is the line we draw to separate them, representing their supposed difference. But here's the kicker. Step 3 is the box. If you want to draw a line separating two dots on a page, you need the paper underneath them to actually draw it on. That box represents a shared extensional medium. Any boundary fundamentally requires a common medium to even exist. So without that box, without that shared background paper containing the line, there's simply no logical way to express a difference between mind and reality. Therefore, the absolute separation of mind and reality literally has no model. You cannot mathematically or logically separate two things without a background reality that unites them both. And this brings up a major historical showdown. For centuries, Western philosophy has relied on Cartesian dualism, Descartes' famous idea that the mental and physical are fundamentally separate. But according to our source, this old dualism has a fatal bug. Because a separation cannot exist unless both things are governed by the same underlying rules, Cartesian dualism just collapses. In stark contrast, the M equals R principle declares that reality and mind must ultimately be regarded as one unified system. Let's move into Section 3. The map is the terrain. Empiricist philosophers pointed out long ago that we experience reality entirely in the form of perceptions and sense data. Everything you know about the objective, external world is processed through your subjective mind. So if someone tried to construct a logical proof that reality is totally separate from cognition, well, they'd have to use cognition to do it. As the source points out, any proof against M equals R would necessarily be cognitive. It's a massive paradox. By using cognition to try and banish cognition from reality, the proof undermines its own medium and instantly cancels itself out. I absolutely love this line from the text. The author couldn't resist a little play on words, stating that, at the syntactic level of cognition and perception, the map is the terrain. Usually, we say the map is not the terrain, meaning your idea of a thing isn't the physical thing itself. But this profound quote flips that right on its head. It shows that at the most fundamental structural level of processing, the structures of our thoughts are actually the exact same structures of reality itself. The cognitive map is built from the same logical terrain it's mapping. This actually solves a huge problem left by the philosopher Immanuel Kant. Kant separated phenomenal reality, what we perceive, from noumenal reality, the true independent reality we supposedly can't access. But M equals R goes beyond Kant's idea that our minds just mirror reality. The text argues that if the independent reality were truly unrelated to the reality we perceive, these two halves wouldn't coincide. They wouldn't share a joint medium. Reality would completely fail for lack of an integrated model. They absolutely must be connected. All right, section 4, the substance of infocognition. Here, the text introduces us to the concept of infocognition, where M, mind, is identified with cognition, and R, reality, is identified with physically embodied information. M equals R says that reality everywhere consists of a common substance. This is infocognition. It's the grand synthesizer. It acts as both mind and reality simultaneously. It proves that physical information and the processor of that information are fundamentally cut from the exact same cloth. Finally, let's look at section 5, reality describing itself. The text introduces another really powerful idea here, the principle of linguistic reducibility. By eliminating the distinction between the theory we create and the universe we live in, it proves that a human theoretical description of reality isn't just some abstract invention. Rather, human beings creating a theory about reality, while contained within reality, amounts to reality literally describing itself. Let's see how this builds perfectly on our earlier concepts. If you think back to the box and the line, the author asks us to mentally swap the terms. Let's replace mind with theory and replace reality with universe. When you do this, the distinction between abstract human thought and the objective physical universe just dissolves. The theory itself becomes reflexive. It becomes inclusive enough, by definition, to describe the entire universe, the rational, right alongside the empirical. And this brilliantly illustrates the ultimate conclusion of the source text. Reality is far more than just a physical space filled with rocks and stars. It's a completely self-contained system. It contains the means of its own configuration, composition, and interpretation. In the grandest sense, reality is a self-processing theory that is mathematically and logically identical to its universe. The universe isn't just sitting there being dumb matter. It's actively processing its own structural information. Which leaves us with this final, staggering thought to ponder. We've seen today how mind and reality share a common syntax, how absolute separation is a logical fallacy, and how infocognition bridges the gap, turning the universe into a self-processing theory. So I leave you with this. If the universe is a self-processing theory, thinking about itself, what role does your mind, your personal, conscious existence as an infocognitive processor, play in configuring it? Think about that the next time you look around the room. Thank you for joining me on this deep dive explainer today. Keep asking those big questions, and I'll see you next time.